Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kaitley, and I'm here with my friend,
Jonathan. Hello, everyone.
Hello, and you're tuning into a conversation called Our Social Dilemma. And this conversation is inspired by the documentary, The Social Dilemma. If you haven't watched it already, it's available on Netflix. And we're just thankful that you're joining us for this conversation. We're hopeful that you tune into the episodes to come. But this particular episode here is about our addiction. And before we get into it, I want to start off by asking two questions to sort of gauge where our social media habits are at. So, Jonathan, I want to know, how soon after waking up do you get on social media? How much time elapses before you open that first social media app in the morning?
Oh boy. Let's see. I would say anywhere from it's probably within 30 minutes. Hour would be the max, but within 30 minutes, I'm on there. Yeah, definitely. Maybe even 15 to 30.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because my answer is within the 15 to 30-minute range. Even like this morning, I was like, Kaitley, you don't need to. I think this morning it might have been within 10 minutes. But yeah, okay, so we're just exposing our truths here. So the next question is, how much time did you spend on social today?
So let's see here. All right, I got 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'll show that right there.
Yeah, mine was 2 hours and 40 minutes. We just want y'all to know beforehand what we're experiencing in our social media relationship. And so let's get into what is an addiction. An addiction is a strong and harmful need to regularly have something, such as a drug, or do something such as gamble or use social media. And an excess use of social media can be an addiction depending on your usage and how it's influencing your life. So one thing we want to talk about is, what is your relationship with social media feeding you? And I want to pass it over to Jonathan so he can talk a little bit more about what we're being fed through social media.
That's really the key word, right? Because if we think about it, it's called our news feed, right? So we're looking at our news feed to look at the news, right? I think we look at more news from our friends than we do the general news, but hey, it's on there too, right? But if you think about it, it's called our news feed because it's what's feeding us. It's what we are consuming. So if we're early in the morning going onto our news feed, it's our breakfast, right?
And we know breakfast is the most important meal of the day. What are we having for breakfast?
That's going to set you up, your mindset for the rest of the day. If you come across something negative, that might set you up for the rest of the day to have that thing on your mind, because that is what you woke up and fed yourself. Now, you may also wake up and see something positive. So that, there's that as well. But you run that risk because it's like a slot machine. Every time you swipe up to refresh, it's a slot machine effect. And I like that you use the word gamble, because it's the reason why people get addicted to gambling. It's not just, I want more money. It's the greed in us, sure. But it's also the addiction, the addictive quality of wanting. It's like an adrenaline rush. I don't know if I'm about to win. So I'm just going to keep playing. I'm going to, the slot machine, I'm going to keep going. And it's the same thing with our news feed. We don't know what we're about to see, but we're going to keep scrolling to see who has the newest car, to see who has the newest house or whatever it is, right? And then we end up falling into the trap of comparing ourselves. But talking about addiction, I use the term, oh, that's dope. This is dope, to refer to things that are cool, right? But if we look at the word dope, it comes from the word dopamine, right? And we know that in the 80s, the term became popular in reference to crack and heroin, right? With that epidemic that occurred in those years, in that decade. So dope is in reference to an excess amount of dopamine that is released, like, for example, in the 80s when you were a crack user, right? We're going to talk about that when you're on social media, you're referred to as a user. So when you are a drug user, what's happening in our brains is that what causes the addiction is this excess release of dopamine, right? And what happens is it is released into our frontal lobe part of our brain that is responsible for reasoning. So when we have an addiction, whether it's to gambling, whether it's to drugs, whether it's to social media, what's happening is that our reasoning is not working at its full potential. So that's why we make decisions like, instead of doing my homework, I'm going to be on social media. Instead of doing something productive, I'm going to be on social media. Instead of going outside, I'm going to be on social media, because our frontal lobe is flooded with dopamine. So yeah, social media, guess what? It's dope.
So you were talking about we're users, right? And we're using these platforms to stay connected, to have like meaningful or just like entertaining interactions, whether it's with our friends, with people we don't know, with different companies that maybe they entertain us. And so we just have to be mindful of what we're using social media for. So we're called users, but you have the power to dictate what you're using social media for. So yes, there's that risk that there can be negative content, there can be like toxic, chaotic content on your feed, but depending on how you choose to use it, you can change your relationship with social media. So that's why, okay, I have nearly 3 hours on social media today, but I can say I feel pretty good with my time on social media today. Maybe not great, but like I was intentional about unfollowing people and pages that feed toxicity, that like if it's memes and they're like chaotic memes, like I was like, I don't need this in the morning. I don't want this for breakfast. So depending on what you use social media for, it can be like an unhealthy addiction. I don't really know about if healthy addictions exist, but what you use social media for establishes whether it's an unhealthy addiction. So we encourage you to like review your feed and think critically about what your feed is feeding you, and decide whether there's some things you need to remove for your own well-being. And you, Jonathan, also like acknowledge the fact that our feeds were in the past called timelines. You shared that with me. And so we're spending time on these feeds and our time is like just being consumed by this. So what are you spending your time on? And when you're on social media, and like what is it feeding you? You have control over that. So we want you to be mindful of that and just make decisions for yourself that will benefit you. You can follow motivational speakers such as Jonathan, and just enhance your experience on social media. So that's what we want you to gain from this conversation. We hope that you enjoyed episode 1 about our addiction. We want you to have this conversation with a friend, with a family member. Don't just keep it to yourself, share this. And we want you to comment below, leave a comment and let us know how soon after waking up are you getting on social media. Make sure you use the hashtag social convo. So that way we know that you're also participating and you're thinking critically about your social media habits, because that's why we're having this conversation about our social dilemma. The truth is that when we expose our struggles, our addictions, we're able to confront them in a healthy way and be proactive about it. So that's why we're having this conversation, and we look forward to seeing you in episode 2. Until next time.
Welcome to the conversation.